First, let's talk about the television addiction is no mere metaphor reading. Granted, this is old. This is definitely old. What, 2002, this was published. And they're talking about stuff that goes pretty far back here. But we can still apply a lot of this stuff to things that we use now. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't even have cable. I don't have cable TV. I just use Netflix, Amazon Prime, and then YouTube also. And it's all on my TV. So I don't have a cable provider. What about you guys? Do you guys watch TV regularly? Like normal TV?
So when I was a kid, yeah, like a lot. But I don't know, when I grew up more, I just got tired of it. And nowadays, in my house, we don't even have cable TV or anything like that.
Right. It's all switched. So even if you did as a kid, which I did, I had to watch things in a certain timeline, like, oh, this show is on Tuesday nights during prime time. Just the concept of prime time, you know, like when people watch TV during dinner or after dinner, depending on when you have dinner, everything's shifted. Now everything is accessible on your phone. There are still some components here. So what were some of the things that you read in this one that were terms or things that he pointed to that are something that we can actually apply now to the way that we get roped in to whatever we're watching? Because you guys definitely still watch and binge watch things. Is that true? In fact, since all this has happened, just the idea of binge watching like an entire show, that has now become possible. It's more than just getting all the DVDs of the show. That's what I had to do when the TV show Lost came out. That's when I first started really watching TV, back in like 2004 or something, when there was already like 2 or 3 seasons out, and someone loaned me the DVDs, and then I just ran through them. And then I loaned them to my sister. She's far more addictive in her personality than me. She went through the whole first season in 24 hours. Like, she stayed up all night and she just watched that show. Like, I gave it to her at 11 at night, and then I woke up the next day and did things, and then came into the living room and it was like, whoa, you're still watching this. And then she watched it into the night. It was crazy. And then second season, she just took like a weekend to watch, but pretty wild. I don't think we were able to do that before because we had commercials that were breaking things up and timetables when they wanted to release things. And it was really rare for them to show episodes back to back. It was typically, for some special event, and then there'd be tons of commercials, so you couldn't get through that much. So it wasn't really as appealing as it is now, and you can just like feed off of it and like just kind of forget about time and realize that you haven't gotten up to pee or have food for like 5 or 6 hours. Can anyone testify to that? No, you don't want to. Yeah, there we go. Come on, be brave. Yeah, you tell me, okay, what is in here that you saw was significant or can be used towards this kind of thing that we do now?
I think people still addicted to TV, but it's in a different form. Because I think most of us use internet, either YouTube or like Netflix, to watch videos. So I think it's still applicable to when it comes to us watching YouTube or Netflix.
Oh, totally. Yeah, those are like the go-tos. And then you can just watch the videos, even on YouTube. They have shows you can watch or even movies with ads. They have things that are just like TV that people even use as TV now, especially, I mean, look how much TV on normal TV is actually reality TV, which isn't really reality. It's like impromptu. You guys know that, right? Reality TV isn't real. Like even the court shows, Judge Judy or any of those, like those aren't even real. Did you know that?
Supposedly, I heard that they pay them to handle the cases, like they give them money for them to be on the shows.
Yeah, so I actually know this personally because while I was going to college, like you guys, I was trying to find what is a job that I can do to make money, but also to be able to do my homework kind of while I'm doing it. So like maybe security guard or something, or the one that we thought of being extras on TV shows or something like that, because we live near LA. So it couldn't be that hard, right? You just sit around, there's a craft table where you can eat, they feed you, you're in air conditioning, and so you just wait for them to need you, and then you like walk across the set or something dumb like that. Now, that's actually really hard to get into that. They have unions and everything, so we took our own headshots and we did all this crazy stuff just to try and get in. So they make it so that unless you even have appearances and stuff like on IMDb or whatever, then you can't even get into the union, and then you can't really get like good gigs for that stuff. It was a nice thought. But anyway, we were going on like Craigslist and trying to like get stuff. And there was one for a court show. It was like, dang it, I can't remember. It's like a lady judge. I don't remember. It wasn't Judge Judy. It was a different one. Gloria Allred. Is that it? Has anyone heard of her? Okay, well, anyway, she's on TV. And what we had to do for this was we go in, and the interview is like, they tell you about a court case that did happen, and then now you have to improv, act it out. And so they had us all standing at like a big room of like 50 plus people, and they would just point to us. They're like, okay, they'd say, here's the case, there's the guy, there's the girl, and here's the dispute. Okay, you're the guy, you're the girl, go. And then they'd make you try to act it out, and whoever did well and who they straight up would demographic, stereotype, everything like that to the people too. And they would pick you, and then if they thought that it worked out, that you guys clicked or whatever, that they would use you. So they didn't use me. they didn't like me for it. They kept trying to use me because I came in like a suit. I was like the only guy who came dressed in a suit. Everyone else was just in like normal clothes. Some guy in like hoodie and like ripped up jeans. But my wife, she got picked, and so she was actually on that show, and so she's having this dispute with this guy who's supposed to be her like boxing trainer, and she accidentally like broke his nose or something, and there was a whole dispute. She never met that guy before at all. I think she follows him on Instagram now. He's like this cool dude that anyway, it's just funny because you don't realize this stuff is totally fake. So they try to get you where they'll have like some small print or something at the end of the show where they'll say, this is based off of a real case or something like that, but it's totally fake. And that's how all reality TV is. Like, if you seriously were to sit and watch the Kardashians and how they would really live their lives, they would probably just be sitting on the couch on their phones all day saying, hey babe, can you go get me a Sprite or something like that. They're like, that's what they would do. I mean, they probably have more interesting lives than us, like going out and doing stuff, but the majority of things would just be boring crap where they're just sitting looking at screens themselves. So they have to spice it up and make drama and then like cry over dumb crap. I still think they'd cry over dumb crap, but all the things that you've ever seen on reality TV have been amplified and modified so that they can make it into drama, as opposed to it being a organic, real, honest thing. Did you already kind of figure that out? Did I crush your dreams about it? Is this like finding out Santa isn't real? Come on, you guys probably knew that for sure. I had to learn the hard way. I wasn't crushed. I was like, oh, this makes sense. Why didn't I think of this? Anyway, what are some of the concepts, though, that came up in here? They compare it to substance dependence. See, when you're going to make a claim about addiction, you have to make a connection with something that we already know has been verified, has been proven without the shadow of a doubt. You get it? So that's one of the components to building your argument. If you want to make a claim of fact, this thing that people don't think is an addiction actually is. It has all these components that are just like the thing that you already believe is an addiction or is addictive. I think we already believe this. You guys already knew. Yeah? Just the fact that binge is in the binge watching, like binge drinking, but this one has less vomit to it. Do you think that it was not useful for them to go all the way back to, what was the oldest thing they reference? 1927. So on the second page, in the third section, grabbing your attention, they mention something from 1927. And we talked about referencing things that are too old. Do you think that's too old, or do you think that has purpose, bringing that up?
I think there's a purpose because I think even though that we don't watch TV as much as before, we are still human, and I mean, so how outer environment influences is still the same, even though the method is different. So I think it's still relevant because by observing how human brainwave have been influenced before, it's gonna be the same how we influenced by the computer or internet.
Totally. So he brings up this concept called orienting response. Do you guys see that? So there's a reason why he brings this up. 1927, Ivan Pavlov. Does that name ring a bell for you at all? Are you guys familiar with this?
No.
That's all right. No one else? You ever heard of Pavlov's dog?
The one where he teaches them to salivate when he rings the bell or something like that.
Yeah. Now, it's not just one dog. He had many dogs, and he was experimenting on dogs. The guy wasn't very cool. Like, most experimenters back in the day aren't very cool because they're kind of just torturing animals. So anyway, this experiment, you were right, Alex. Every time he's going to feed the dog, he rings the bell, and the dog connects that in their brain, and they start salivating, so that even if there's not food and he rings the bell, the dog would start salivating, proving that there's this orienting response that happens. So understand, by bringing up 1927, this is before TV. This is well before TV. Look how long we have been experimenting to try and figure out how to do this. You think dogs, you think that was the end all for that experiment? Once people latched onto this, once people figured out that you could do this, they immediately started working on humans in a way, like theorizing and trying to figure out what would work. And as soon as you get the medium to do it with, like TV or radio, and being able to track what was happening with people, their engagement with it, it became a field that was so important, because this is how you keep people's attention. This is how you, like, if you can keep people's attention and you can keep them listening, you can feed them whatever you want. It's a powerful tool. So apparently people took note of this, and we have been doing nothing but perfecting it. Like, think about it, right? All these examples that they use for TV, like the cuts, the edits, the zooms, the pans, the sudden noises, the volume raising or lowering at certain times, like, these are all, if you think about it in writing, these would be called rhetorical tactics, like things that you use to keep your reader. But in this case, so when you were younger and you watched normal TV, that, I don't know about you guys, but my mom always used to have the TV on at all times. She was an artist, so she'd be at her easel painting all day long, and she'd have the TV going, so it's like white noise in the background. And even when I go over to my father-in-law's house, he will have TV on, either the news or whatever, like, game, like basketball game is on. It's just always going to be in the background. Have you ever tried to have a conversation with someone while the TV's going on in the background? Is it hard to think? Is it hard to, like, actually be able to carry on that conversation?
I think people will get very distracted when TV is ongoing.
Oh yeah. I mean, even if you're having an interesting conversation, loud noises or the flickering of the screen, the just any kind of movement, what's happening in our brains that makes it so that we can't? Do we just have ADD or ADHD? Is that what it is? Or is there something else going on? What did they say in here?
I believe it was one of the last sentences of our class. A person said that when they were talking to people and the TV was on, that even though that person didn't even like TV, that he will not like control himself to look at the TV sometimes, like when talking to a person.
Yeah, he couldn't stop it. I can testify to that too. I know firsthand that that's happened to me countless times. I'll be like in the middle of a sentence, really passionately talking about something, and then that will happen. Something will happen over there, and I'll be like, in my worst experiences, I've just straight up dropped what I've said and just start watching the thing, even though I'm in mid-sentence. And then the other person might do the same thing and not even notice that I literally just stopped right in the middle of my sentence. They call this an evolutionary trait, don't they? The orienting response is our instinctive visual or auditory reaction to any sudden or novel stimulus. It is part of our evolutionary heritage, a built-in sensitivity to movement and potential predatory threats. That makes sense, right? It's something that has been ingrained in us over time because at a certain point, we weren't the only predators out there that we had to worry about. That's one of the arguments for why you tend to see faces in things. Have you guys ever noticed that? Like you'll see faces where there's not really a face. Like, does anyone have linoleum in their bathroom? Or has anyone seen that? Like weird abstract patterns? Or even, no one's sitting on the toilet and you're just looking down and there's like weird shapes and then they end up looking like faces. They always look like faces of monsters to me growing up.
In a carpet or something?
Yeah, or in the carpet. Exactly. It's just something that your brain typically does. It tries to see faces and stuff. One of the arguments from scientists is that has to do with trying to see stuff that's blending into the brush around us, even out of the corner of our eye, so that we can be aware of predators who are trying to, snipe us from the bushes. Camping, yeah. Lions are lazy. They're just going to sit there and camp. And then once they finally need to, then they're going to bolt out and use their energy because they have to, conserve. So that's something that once we figure out how humans' brains work like that, then they exploit it. We've just been exploiting it this whole time. That's important. They also touched on some other things, some other concepts like a body at rest stays at rest. So when I turn on the TV or YouTube or whatever at certain times of the day, because let's say I want to take a break or I'm going to eat a meal or I just want to relax, sit on the couch just for a couple minutes. So there's data that would point to, sure, you get rest. That does give you a little bit of rest, but the longer you stay resting, the less rest that it actually does for you. The less rest you get, and then it ends up keeping you in that state. And so the idea of a body at rest stays at rest actually is fulfilled there, which that's more of like a physics term. So that's pretty interesting. Did you guys notice there was this other part? So TV has been around, the internet has been around your whole life, but to be able to observe people before something happens, knowing that it will happen, a microcosm, like a small area of people who have been unaffected by something, and then see how it plays out with them, we were able to do that. Anthropologists were able to do that with TV or technology with quite a few people. So I didn't give you guys this reading, but there's this one on the Oji Cree, which are a indigenous people up in northern Canada. They didn't have technology. They have sled dogs, or they would hike pretty much like 50 miles a day in the snow every day, like normally. This was their normal schedule. And then they got the gas engine, and they got TV, and they got drugs. And what do you think happened to them? Like, we were able to watch and see, like we could compare what they were like before and then we could see what happened to them later. In this reading, they actually do this with a small town that gets TV, and they see the difference in the way that people act in their habits and lifestyles. They talked about people having to wait in lines. Have you ever stood in a line? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. You're at least listening to me. Of course, you have all stood in lines before. Have you ever stood in line without your phone?
Without my phone?
Yeah, like without it. Like you left it at home or it was dead and so you couldn't use it?
Probably once or twice.
Okay. How did that make you feel?
To be honest, I cannot feel panicked because I rely heavily on my phone now. Like I pay with my phone, and when there's nothing else to do, I need my phone to distract myself, I guess. So I'm pretty feel weird that I don't have my phone.
Yeah. Okay, I get that. We're not saying these things are evil. They're incredible tools. You can do so many things with your phone. We can use this for things that are useful, or we could just like sit and play video games or watch porn on them. Right? I think 30% of internet traffic is just porn. It's just watching porn. That's just, anyway. How does it make you feel when you don't have access to your phone? Because you can set it down anytime you want, right? You're not controlled by this thing. You can set it down. You just don't want to, you know? But when you've run out of batteries and there's no wall charger, or you forgot your charger at home, idiot. Such an idiot. I can't believe I forgot my charger at home. Maybe you go home. Maybe you go back. Maybe you skip your class just so that you can get your charger. Obviously, this is not an issue anymore now that we're doing everything from home. But there was a time, maybe even in high school or something like that, and your phone's battery dies and you don't have access to it, or you left it at home. And you go into panic, not just because you can't pay for things, but because what are you going to do for entertainment? This has really good concepts, and that's why I use it. But this is way dated. Like they even tried to bring up a video game, and it was really a TV show. Did anyone notice that at the end? They were trying to talk about video games, and they ended up bringing up this issue that happened with the Pokemon TV show, talking about the seizure effect that it had on some kids. 700 kids in Japan in 1997. So that was from a TV show. So they didn't really even understand like just how far these things went. But there's some really important concepts that they cover that are applicable to the stuff that we're talking about now. So are you irritable when you don't have your phone, or when someone interrupts you while you're doing something on your phone? Like there's a flesh and blood person in front of you trying to have a conversation with you. But couldn't they see that you were already on your phone? Like, leave me alone, you know? Come on, guys. If you wanted to write on the topic of technology and specifically what smartphones might do to us, or a specific type of technology, how it contributes to a certain behavior, see how you got to get specific with what you're claiming so that you have enough room to talk about it in depth, then maybe you want to look at this article. So how smartphones really destroyed a generation. We don't know. And that's true. We don't know yet because you have to wait and see. But so far, I'm pretty sure everything's going to come crashing down. And without the help of politicians, actually, it's still with their help because they let legislation get through which caters to corporations that will use us, like in any way possible, to make money off of us and to control us. And that tends to make us into some kind of addict. Here's another one. This is actually a science journal. Altered gray matter volume and white matter integrity in college students with mobile phone dependence. Interesting stuff that you could go into to write an argument of fact about on these topics. And I just pointed you to two sources or things that you could look at, because check it out. If you even just read the abstract to this and they're talking about the hippocampus, bilateral thought, oh, wow. You could just Google search, how does screen time affect? And then you put some keywords or specific things, and you may find some good sources to work within a specific topic to make a claim of fact about, where you're not just regurgitating someone else's thing, but you're adding your own spin on it. So those are two things. Remember, if you think of a good question, that question can always be changed into a claim. So you can have an answer to that question that could be your thesis statement. So our lives are consumed with a dependence on technology and multitasking now. Like, that's undeniable. No one could really argue against you on that, but does this affect us psychologically? Like think about not even your parents, but like your grandparents or your great-grandparents. What did they have for entertainment and activity, like the things they needed to do? It was typically one thing at a time. And for entertainment, they had a window. They had a window and they had a radio. I'm talking about well before TV here. Think about that. If your entire life, all you've had to do or think about was one thing at a time, one conversation, one activity, one task, wouldn't that change even the way that your brain is wired as you develop? Think about yourself and how many stimuli have been going in your head, in your ears, in your eyes, flying at 80 to 90 miles an hour down the road, listening to something on Spotify while watching something else on a screen, while someone's trying to talk in your ear. How many things do we do all the time? How does that not affect us in ways of like having issues with concentrating? Do you think that your great-grandparents would have been able to concentrate on so many things? They probably would have lost their minds or just been unable to function. But you are able to somehow kind of function, but are you able to function as well as they were able to function doing that one thing? How hard is it for you to just do one thing at a time? So what I'm saying is, this could be a topic that you talk about, that you write about. You could turn that into an answer. And it doesn't have to just be about ADHD. It could be about anything involving your brain and how any of that stuff works. You really have like endless possibilities for what to write for this essay. You just have to look into it a little bit. All right, anything else on that one? I feel like we should move on. Let's talk about the video games. Ollie's got his video game headphones on. What's up, bro?
Yo, calling me out.
Well, what did you think about that reading?
Video game addiction? I thought it was interesting. They mentioned something about how the tests or the checklist to see whether video games were an addictive activity was the same checklist used for drugs, right? But the fact is that it was an unfair assessment, because every single or almost everyone has played video games once in their life. So it's almost a little unfair to say that it could be as addictive as drugs or has this dopamine. Of course, it may have those changes in our mind, but you could use the same test for video games as an activity.
That is a good point. And people get addicted to activities like working out or running or things that change their brain chemistry. And there's other elements to it too. Like, why do people work out harder when they're at the gym as opposed to at home? Is it because they have different weights to work with, or is it because there's a bunch of mirrors and there's girls and other guys that, they know they can lift more than that guy only using 50-pound dumbbells? What's up with that guy? Get out of here. Right? I'm going to pick up the 60s right next to him and do the same exercise. There's something going on that is more complicated. So that's a good argument. Also, drugs are different. We talked about weed not giving you dopamine, so that it's not really comparable there, but there is something interesting how you can't OD on weed. At least you can't OD on smoking weed. You can probably OD on eating it, on edibles and stuff like that. I don't know anything about that, but I do know that you will probably just pass out if you try to smoke weed indefinitely. You will eventually just pass out. So like with video games, I mean, you can go significantly longer. The effect, the amount of dopamine you're getting is not the same as heroin or cocaine or, some kind of stimulant. Like you said, it's comparing two unlike things maybe. There are some similarities with a kind of addiction thing, but you do see, right? Like with the TV reading, as well as with this one, if you're going to say something is addictive, you have to then try and connect it similarly with other things that we have already proven are addictive. And the biggest things that we talk about is drugs. But then there is something to say about binge video game playing. Were there any examples in here about kids playing video games for excessive amounts of time and possibly having to go to the hospital?
For the two Taiwan guys died for playing too much video game.
Has that kind of stuff happened?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to say for yourself, but maybe a friend. Say your friend did it, even if it's you, right? Have you ever played video games, or have they played video games for so long, your friend, so long that when you tried to finally get up, your legs gave out or you got lightheaded and you couldn't even see anything? Maybe that's a daily occurrence.
I think there's almost like a threshold of how much you can play before it gets uninteresting for most people. I think the difference between people who are addicted is that they don't have that like threshold or like limit. It's just that they keep going.
Right. And some things are more and less addictive than others. So you guys don't get anxiety while you're playing video games or anything, like the intensity of it? So we were talking about cortisol levels last time and what happens when you're in a heightened state for a long period of time. So maybe you don't play video games like a junkie for 12 to 16 hours a day because you're actually trying to compete and become a Twitch god. So there are reasons why you might do that. Back when I was in college, people were also building characters like in World of Warcraft or something like that, and they were like selling characters. So they'd build someone to like this crazy level, and then they would sell it to someone who doesn't want to have to work for it. There was that concept too. So I think unless you're trying to do something like that, you're probably not going to play video games that intensely. But I'm sure there are times when you've played video games for like 6 to 8 hours even, maybe with your friends, and you just got this great session going, and you find yourself like getting up from the computer like this, sweat all over the seat, and you feel exhausted because you've just been like going and going. You don't even realize that your like adrenaline has been pumping nonstop that whole entire time because it was intense and you guys were winning and or whatever. There's really hard teams. I don't know, dude. I don't play video games. Okay, let's talk about this. You're in line. You bust out your phone. So we're not even just talking about on the computer with your big headphones. It's just one more element to the way that we try to keep ourselves busy at all times, don't you think? People probably don't play like Candy Crush anymore or like Farmville or whatever, but any of those things, those kinds of video games on your phone, whenever you have an idle moment, it's either social media or video games. Does anyone operate like that? Or not you, but your friend, where they have to consume all of their time with being entertained. There's no idle time where they just sit and they think about things in life, like longer periods of time where they have to sit, like even just being bored. Do you guys ever find yourself being bored? Or once you get bored, do you pull out your phone to play video games or to look at social media?
Yeah, true. That's very common.
Yeah, that's a common thing. So if you don't do that, good for you. You are actually rare. That's what people do now, like most people. So I live in an area where there's vaqueros who ride their horses. Like I'm in LA, but there's this little community near me where there's people with horses. And because there's a couple rivers, they can actually ride their horses around the rivers. So I've like taken my video camera out and like recorded them. It's cool. Sometimes they'll get like lassos going. I am so surprised about how many of them sit on their phones watching videos while they're riding their horse. Like even in that scenario, just sitting staring at your phone
Isn't that distracted driving though?
or driving. Have you guys noticed for the past couple years, when I used to drive to work, I'd just put on the radio trying to find really crappy music to make you guys analyze. And while driving safely, I would, just glance over at the people around me. It would be so rare to see someone not staring at their phone while they were driving.
That is a dangerous hazard.
That is so dangerous, though.
Honestly, I would not let my friends drive anymore. I'm like, nope.
That's good. All right, there's a single question on the screen. This is an old question. Does playing violent video games excessively cause people to become more violent? You guys have heard arguments, especially from like teachers, maybe in like middle school or something like that, about that. What do you guys think?
I disagree. I think there's other reasons that cause people to become violent, but playing video game, it's like not everyone playing the same video game would become violent. It's because they have the person has the potential to become violent. They play video games, so they become his violence or her violence appear. I think that's my.
Oh, yeah. So it gives them like an outlet for it, and then they practice that a bit. Well, I would tend to agree with you, Zach. There's something else going on. And we always want to pinpoint one thing, and that is almost never the case, that it's solely this one thing that caused it. It's a plethora of things. How about all of the violent content that you're taking in, or the ways that kids are taught to channel things? Like, let's say your parents. Do your parents act out aggressively with anger or rage? When you get punished as a child, even corporal punishment, the idea of spanking your kid, that can be done different ways, right? It doesn't have to be out of anger. It can be like the parent has you sit on timeout for a bit, and then they regain their composure and they come in and they talk to you gently and they explain what you did wrong, and then they spank you. Or you could do something that pisses them off and they could just rip off their belt and start beating the crap out of you. You see how there's differences in that? Clear differences. And so even with that, some parents are just like, no, I refuse to spank my child. But there's a huge spectrum along those lines. And depending on, your upbringing and what you saw your model doing, why do you just want to pin it on video games? It's definitely more complicated. But there are people who would make the argument. There's other things to look at with video games. One of the main arguments that has been made about the claim that video games make you more violent, or the response to it, is kind of like a purge effect, where you actually are getting violence out of your system. Has anyone ever heard that argument? People need an outlet. Well, that's not necessarily a good argument, actually. So Minefield, this is from the Vsauce channel, on the 3rd episode of the 1st season. Have you guys ever seen like those rooms where you break stuff? Yeah, you've heard of these? So there have been studies done where they have assessed, in this very episode, they actually do a little experiment in, does that help? Is that cathartic to be able to destroy stuff and then you can go back to your life and feel refreshed? Is that really a thing that works? So they talk about that stuff here, and it is really interesting. I would suggest you watch this even if you're not going to write on it. It's 25 minutes. You'll be entertained and you will learn something. They do things really well. So that's one. You might even check through other Minefield stuff and find good topics, something that will pique your interest that you want to go on about for your essay. So I just wanted to throw that out there for you.